All right, let's welcome in an old friend of the program, longtime Moose captain, and now scout with the Dallas Stars, Jason Jaffray. Chaps, it's awesome to have you on the program. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to see some familiar faces from back in the day.
A big day yesterday here in Winnipeg for the Winnipeg Jets, and someone you know very well. Scott Arniel announced as the new head coach of Winnipeg. You, of course, were his captain for a number of years with the Manitoba Moose. What was your reaction when you heard that Arnie was getting another opportunity to be the head knock behind a bench in the NHL?
I was excited for him. He's a guy that I ran into in the draft last year at the NHL draft, and we kind of walked by each other in the restaurants, and I didn't want to be that awkward guy that stopped at the Winnipeg table when they know I work for Dallas now. But him and Mark Chipman both stood up, gave me a big hug. I was actually with Max Fortunas at the time because Max Fortunas is actually assistant coach in the American Hockey League for the Texas Stars. And they came up and gave us both big hugs. We had a good chat. He's just a good person. Scott Arniel's just a guy that I've stayed in touch with when he was in Washington and Columbus, and just one of those guys that did a lot for my career. I think if you look back at my career and the big years that I had, they were underneath Scott Arniel. And he brought a lot out of me. And there was a couple of instances and stories that I still tell people to this day that he made me a better player. He made us a better team. I think I got him for 3, maybe 4 years when we were in Winnipeg. And I just remember leaving playoff games and as a player, you don't think the coach makes a big difference very often. And I remember being in our Calder Cup run with the Manitoba Moose and remembering some in-game adjustments and some different things that he did while we were out on the ice that I honestly went home thinking the coach made a huge difference tonight in the adjustments he made in between periods and the system work. And as a young player, you don't get that too often. You just think, hey, it's the players doing their own thing. But Scott Arniel was kind of that first coach that really opened my eyes to in-game adjustments and the line shuffling and making things work. And then we were 2 wins away from a Calder Cup because of it.
What do you remember him as a head coach as far as being a leader, a motivator, and I guess probably most importantly in today's day and age, a communicator with the players?
So I kind of have a funny story from Scott Arniel. So if you look back at my stats and my pro career, I had some really good numbers underneath Scott when I was there. And I remember he called me in. It was about halfway through the season, maybe a third of the way through the season, and he called me into his office and told me he thought that I was out of shape. And at this time, like I was leading scorer on the team, first line power play, half wall, kind of doing everything for him, playing all aspects of the game. And I just remember going home and I was pissed. I wasn't happy with him. But he said, hey, I want you to lose 10 pounds. I want you to be in here before everybody else shows up every day and riding the bike for 45 minutes. And then after practice, I want you on the bike for 45 minutes. And I want you to, I think I was a 205 at the time. He goes, I want you at 195. And as one of the leaders on the team and one of the guys that was kind of relied upon to run his dressing room, but also run his power play and kind of all aspects of it, I remember I went and did it. I buried my head and I went and did it, and I shed the 10 pounds. It took me about 3.5 weeks to get it. But I looked back at it a couple of years later and I was like, why did he do this? Why did he do this? Was it for me or was it for the team? Because I remember the first week, everybody's like, hey, what are you doing? Why is our leading scorer on the bike before anybody gets in and on the bike? But a week in, everybody else started joining me, right? People started jumping on the bandwagon and saying, hey, look, Jaffray's doing it and he's our top player. I better be doing this too. So I looked at it a couple of years later and I actually haven't had the conversation with Arnie about it. He probably doesn't even remember. He's probably done a lot of these things, but it made our team so much better due to it because the work ethic of their top player at the time had to step it up in a part of the season where we were dominating and we were getting better. And I think he was finding ways to motivate the dressing room as we were rolling through teams, because I think we were the best team in the American Hockey League that year, us and Hershey. And he found a way to get us to that next level and continue to grow as a group. And small little things like that with Arnie, I looked back at years later, and I do some coaching now with my son, and just kind of trying to find ways to motivate players and motivate your top guys and motivate your team in your dressing room. And he was very, very good at that. And I think you saw that when Bones was out of the lineup, dealing with some personal issues earlier in the year, he stepped in, and their record was very, very strong because of it. So when they named him head coach, I wasn't surprised. I think it was an easy choice. I think Chipman and those guys probably did their homework on a few other really solid names, but at the end of the day, you probably had to blow them out of the water in regards to your interview process, because your best candidate was sitting right in front of you.
Well, he's worked incredibly hard to get another opportunity in the league, and as you would well know, I mean, with coaches. Well, I mean, he famously said this, I think, after the experience in Columbus. He said, you go in there thinking you've got all the answers, and you finish the first year and you realize you didn't even know all the questions. And in a lot of ways, it seems like he's been working with an incredible group of head coaches, including Rick Bowness, over the last couple of years as an associate, to get this second chance. And certainly it seems like he's excited for it, and I would suggest more prepared for it. And I mean, the Winnipeg Jets as a team right now did have 52 wins. They did not play their best in the playoffs. He's coming in to carry on a foundation that was built under Bones. That's a pretty good starting point if you can keep it moving forward in the right direction.
100%. I think he's very open to the conversation where maybe he wasn't ready for that first opportunity. He coached a very good team in the Manitoba Moose and was thrown into an opportunity in Columbus where maybe he didn't have the right guidance or the right time behind the bench to be able to jump into a situation like that and be successful. Now he went to Washington and back to Winnipeg and kind of learned under some top end coaches, just like you said, right? And the good guys kind of steal what they like from the different coaches and steal what they like. You take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and that's what the good guys. If you continue to get better, continue to grow as a coach, it's the guys that are stuck to their same ways over and over and over again that tend to not move up. And so that was the first thing that I said to Arnie when I heard the announcement. I texted him and said, "Hey, congrats on the gig. I'm very excited to see you getting another opportunity as the head guy, and hoping that he takes full advantage of it." And like you said, he's going into a good situation now. I think what Bones and the coaching staff has done over the last year, and in naming Adam Lowry captain and signing Scheifele and Hellebuck. And I mean, he's stepping into a very solid situation, unlike probably the Columbus situation where it was a little bit in shambles at the time. And so he's got all the pieces to the puzzle, right? He's got the number one goaltender. He's got the number one defenseman. He's got his top line centerman locked up. They had a phenomenal year this year, stats-wise. Disappointing in the playoffs, but not many teams would have beat the Colorado Avalanche, right? I mean, you kind of ran into, I mean, whoever we were going to play in the first round, whether it was Vegas, whether it was Dallas, whether it was Winnipeg, right? It was, I mean, it's not like the old days where if you have a good season, you get to roll through the first round. So it was a tough matchup for you guys, and hopefully they get better because of it. And it's, I'm excited for his opportunity because I think he's been given a great chance with a great team, and see what he can do with it now.